We're sorry, you have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. Vaguely Scientific is temporarily unable to take your call on account of being demolished by a massive explosion. Thank you. Goodbye.
Where am I? What is this place? This is weird. Hello? This is Derek. Can anybody hear? Whoa, what was that? I think I heard something. Hey, it's Jim. Jim the scientist. Jim, over here. Can you hear me?
I'm like literally standing next to you. I've been here the whole time, man.
Rude. I've been having this weird existential crisis and you just are watching.
Yeah, that's why I didn't say anything. I didn't want to make it worse.
Well, okay. Well, the last thing I remember is the whole lab on the moon blowing up. So I wonder who else is... Wait, is that Allie? Allie, we're over here.
Oh, hey guys.
Welcome to the... wherever this is.
The Void? I hang out here a lot.
Oh. Well, that's good. That's good to know.
What are you guys doing here?
Well, I don't really know what's going on, but I guess since the three of us are here, we could do the show where we answer the strangest audience submitted questions we can think of in a manner that we usually call vaguely scientific. At least until we figure out where we are and stuff. Jim, do you happen to have a fun science fact of the day?
I do. It took me a minute to find one because I didn't think about it until we regained consciousness. But this one is pretty fun. I hope I didn't do this one before. So it turns out the moon is upside down if you're in the southern hemisphere. Or alternatively, if you were listening to us in the southern hemisphere, the moon's upside down in the northern hemisphere.
Oh, interesting.
I just turned my head like an owl to try to orient myself to the question. But yeah.
I did that too.
Did you really?
I really did, yeah. I was like, oh, I'm weird.
It's so weird to think about because if you get a globe and just look at where a person would be standing in, New Zealand or something, it makes perfect sense, but it's just odd to think about.
Yeah. Weird. Perspective is fun.
Yeah. And if you're on the moon, everything's right side up.
That's true. Well, yeah. Yeah, I guess.
I just had a weird thought.
Spatially, I'm struggling right now, Jim, so I'm excited for your weird thought.
I wonder if you're on the southern hemisphere of the moon, I would assume the Earth would look upside down.
Oh, no.
Well, doesn't...
Wait a minute.
Isn't the famous picture of the Earth from the moon? There's one famous picture of the Earth taken from the moon, and it is oriented like the upside down from how we typically think of a map.
You're probably right.
I mean, that makes sense.
I watch a lot of videos of people explaining why moon landing deniers are wrong, because I like to actually know the explanations for things, and I remember that being a thing.
Yeah, as I recall, I think we've landed in the southern hemisphere of the moon at least once. So there's photographic proof of this somewhere. I just haven't found it yet because I'm just using Google image search.
Well, we actually have some housekeeping for this episode that maybe I'll move on to while Jim is looking up moon pictures. We actually have to revisit that segment we like to call Stuff We Got Wrong and Actually Bothered to Look Up Later. In episode 116, Pizza Teeth, Jonathan mentioned that since turtles have pancreases, they might enjoy the Pancreas song by Weird Al. And a keen-eared listener let us know that there is actually another comedy Pancreas song by Haywood Banks. And for a moment, we thought we had made a mistake. However, everyone will be pleased to know that it turns out we were both right. There are two Pancreas songs by each different person.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear this because I'd never heard of the Haywood Banks version, or not version, the Haywood Banks totally separate song.
Yeah, it's just a different song.
Yeah, and I thought it was funny because it's like it's if I had a nickel for every time a comedy musician made a song about pancreases, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Yeah.
To quote the internet meme / Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, that's right. It is Phineas and Ferb.
Ah, yeah. We should probably talk about our first question.
Yeah.
Question 1 this week comes to us from Jonathan. Can humans feel wetness? And what would it feel like if they could? I remember when Jonathan first sent us this question, and I wasn't sure if it was like actually supposed to just be literally, can humans feel wetness? Like the state of being wet.
Mm-hmm.
Because that seemed like such just a bizarre thought.
It's a reductive question, kind of.
Yeah.
It sounds like an internet troll question.
Right. That's exactly what I meant. And so I had to Google it, and turns out there's a good reason to ask the question.
Yeah,
because we can't. We can't, and that really messes with my brain.
I never thought about this until today. In fact, I forgot this was on our list of questions because there are like 150 on the list right now, and I haven't looked at it closely.
Yeah. Listeners, if you've sent us questions, like, we will probably get to them, but we have a lot.
Yeah.
So many. Countless. Innumerable. Well, no, you can count them. There's literally a specific number.
They're numbered, in fact.
I don't read.
But and I like, this question seemed like a sort of like, oh, it must be one of the April Fool's questions.
Right.
But it turns out, no, we can't feel wetness, and I'm mind blown by this.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact moment where I learned about this. I fell down a YouTube rabbit hole a couple of months ago where I was kind of learning about our protoception and, how our brain recognizes what is around us and what is not around us and how our vision works. And at some point, I remember falling into this discussion that, we can't perceive humidity or wetness. It's not something that we have the actual sensation to do. And it really freaked me out.
Mm-hmm.
Humidity is interesting.
Yeah. Because, we all have felt wet, right?
Right.
You guys have been in water. You know what wet feels like.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't. We can feel the temperature, and through our lives, we have come to know what those temperature changes and pressure changes mean. Mm-hmm. So, through 2 or 3 different senses, we can interpret wetness, but we cannot feel wetness, and I hate it.
Well, it's weird that you specifically mention humidity, because that is not something I considered prior to right now. And I just before we started recording, I was complaining about how I hate summer and everyone else loves summer. Like, one of the things I can't stand is humidity, being all sweaty and the sweat can't evaporate because it's too humid.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm rethinking everything I was prepared to say, because I definitely feel when it's humid because I'm uncomfortable. But But what makes me, and I guess it's kind of sticky, I guess, but
yeah, the wild thing, because I was reading about the various senses that contribute to the idea of feeling wet, even though there's not a wetness sense. And they're saying, oh yeah, if you have something that quickly reduces temperature, like cold metal, and I'm like, yeah, cold metal does always feel wet, and it's not. And I was like, okay, now I can wrap my head around this. It's like, okay.
I don't know, Derek, you might sympathize with this as fellow cat owner, but my cat always, at some point, will feel wet. And I'll pick him up and be like, why are you wet? But he's not. He's just his feet are cold. And I feel that, and it immediately feels wet.
Mm-hmm.
My cat lives half his life outside, so he often just is wet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and on the same token, though, sometimes I've like picked up a cat and it's felt wet because it's warm.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, is this cat damp? And it's like, no, it's just warm. And so it's a similar idea, but it's, again, just the temperature.
Yeah. That's so bizarre to me because, well, so I want to tell you the first thing I thought of once I learned it's a combination of temperature and texture is part of it. Cause like you can feel when something's like smoother and water lubricates and makes things slippery. And the first place my brain went was the difference between taste and flavor. Because flavor is defined in culinary settings as not just the taste, but also aroma. And they list things like nostalgia as part of what your brain makes into this flavor and like the visual of the food. But even taste, if you ignore all that, taste is made up of like salty and sweet and sour and like only like 5 or 6 things. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Salty, sweet, fatty, acid.
Yeah.
And something else.
Umami.
Umami.
I have it here. It's, sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. And there's five things. And your brain can combine those 5 things in different ratios to make all sorts of different, what we define as completely different tastes.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I thought of. Like, our brains are taking this unconnected information and we've decided we know that this is contextually water or some sort of liquid.
Yeah.
Right.
But we can also be wrong a lot.
And that makes me wonder, like, if you were to get a bowl of water that is perfectly your body temperature, your individual body temperature, and you just put your hand on the surface of the water, would you be able to tell that you were wet?
Interesting.
And I don't know the answer, but I am curious about it.
Well, I know, like, sometimes I'll have issues with, like, my feet are cold, but I'm wearing socks and shoes, and I can't tell. I know, and I mean, I don't mean to be graphic or anything, but there have been times when I've, like, hurt my foot, and I can't tell if I'm bleeding.
Yeah.
And that's so bizarre.
I've had that situation where my feet are cold and I have socks, and I was like, are my feet wet? And they're not. They're just cold.
Yeah.
Also not going to get too graphic, but there have been times when I have been bit or cut and have not noticed it because that liquid is my body temperature.
Right.
And it wasn't until I looked down and was like, oh, like my hand is covered in blood. Let me take care of this. Yeah,
that's... I was looking at the second part of the question, what would it be like if we could? And I was like, I feel like we have a good handle of it and don't need to, but like maybe we would need to.
I feel like if we did, we would be miserable because we are. I mean, we're really sweaty creatures, and that's sweat
true.
And precipitation is there constantly. So I feel like if we could detect that moisture constantly, it would be so aggravating.
Like, how much would you be conscious of it all the time? Would it be distracting? That's a good point.
Well, that's true. And the other thing is, though, is that our own personal, like, various wetness levels would be something that our brain would filter out. Like, you know how this is actually something, Allie, you just literally mentioned to me the other day. Is like, you never think about your nose until you think about your nose.
Yeah, it's in your vision all the time.
Yeah, but you kind of filter it out. Interesting.
So maybe all the various sogginess of your human body would be filtered out until you have to, like, think about it.
Well, it's what do you call that? Incessancy, right? Like, if you don't, like, if there's a white noise in a room, you don't notice it until it stops. I was thinking about, because apparently, I don't know if this is true, if one of you told me this or if I heard this somewhere else or just made it up. Sometimes I do that. But can fish tell if they are wet? Is that something we talked about? Maybe it isn't something we talked about.
I don't think so, but I am going to look it up.
Okay, so that might have been something I imagined, but whether or not that is true, it reminded me of, like, you'll hear about all these different animals, like a lot of insects, that can see ultraviolet light or can see different ranges of the color spectrum. And the question of what would it be like if humans can see ultraviolet light, we can translate that onto like UV monitors and stuff, but it always translates it to basically purple. So like really, like realistically, that's just something we can't imagine, like a color that is beyond the rainbow, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing I was thinking of, because I was thinking like, okay, well, what would being able to feel wetness feel like? And to me, I'm like, I fundamentally don't think I can understand, because it would be a totally different sense that we don't have at all. Yeah. And so I don't know that I can comprehend how it might feel differently than it already does.
So I have some unfortunate news.
That fish cannot feel wetness?
Well, no. It's that I need to be way more careful as to what my sources are, because I started reading into this article without looking at the link or anything else on the webpage. And I was really invested with what they were saying. They were like, we know what wetness is because of pressure. Fish would also know what wetness is because of pressure. Fish don't know when they're wet, just as human beings don't know when they're wet, because fish have never known any other condition. For fish, wet is not wet, wet is normal. And then the next sentence is, I mentioned this obvious fact because people in the West are a lot like fish. And I went, uh-oh.
What?
What?
Uh-oh. And then
that took a hard turn.
And I look up and I am on the Ancient Faith Ministries podcast website. That is not a scientific resource.
Although that does make me think then, like, we don't feel air. I mean, like, we feel air moving, but that's just pressure. Like,
sure.
If you sit very, very still, you don't feel the air existing around you. So I guess a fish wouldn't feel the water existing around them either.
Right. Unless they are brought to a pressure or a temperature that they are unable to thrive in.
Right. So.
As would we.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because if you go like scuba diving or something, you get acclimated to the fact that you are surrounded by water pretty much as soon as your body temperature normalizes. Mm-hmm. And then, aside from the fact that you can feel water hitting your eyes if you take your goggles off or something, like, yeah, you don't really notice that you're in water anymore. Mm-hmm. But you have to, like, that's not something I never would have thought of, because, like, you're scuba diving, so you're clearly aware that you're in water.
The times that I've been snorkeling, I've become, like, very aware in moments when I've gone too deep, too fast, because that pressure increases way faster than you think it's going to.
Yeah. Okay.
And like going 10, 12, 16 feet down, you really start to feel it in your chest if you don't take the time to acclimate to different pressures, and you don't blow your eardrums out when you go down to 20 feet and not pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, I haven't been scuba diving in so long, but you do have to, every time you dive further, you have to like repressurize your sinuses.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't like this question.
Yeah, it's really interesting though. Like, I also am getting a little bit weirded out by it, but also it makes me think of the animals that do experience wetness, and like I just like you compared it to the rays of light that we can't see, the range of light that aren't visible to us. Mm-hmm. Like, they have an entirely different experience than what we can comprehend.
Yeah.
And that's super interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. Even just like, I was thinking about radio astronomy the other day, and the fact that there's a whole spectrum of, I mean, most of the light spectrum we can't see at all.
Correct.
But we're able to use special instruments to comprehend it, but we still aren't seeing it. We have to, like, false color that thing. And you can't false sense a water, a wetness. There's just no way. It's so weird. I can't get over it.
I'm really trying to find, I don't want to dedicate too much time to it, but I'm really trying to find some reputable source to just give me an idea. I guess we can't see into the minds of other animals, so maybe it's just something we don't know. But like, I'm thinking about it now, and fish need to be in water to breathe, and they just live in water all the time. But like, if you took a fish on land, it could tell that it wasn't in water because it would have trouble breathing and because it would not have the pressure of the water on it anymore.
And it would start to dry out very quickly. But it doesn't, like, when you feel that you are wet, what you're feeling is water as like an object. So like, maybe fish can't feel wetness. Maybe wetness is a weird abstract sense that just like is a nothing thing. It's just like here in the void.
It's just like here in the void.
And it's also very possible that nothing has ever really evolved to need to feel water. Because like we feel it with a lot of our other senses, but we don't need to feel if we are wet or if we are dry, because we get those, 3 or 4 other senses working together to tell us that that's happening anyway. So
there are animals that do have a dedicated wetness organ.
Oh,
interesting.
Okay.
It's insects. Insects, typically of different varieties, will have something that senses humidity. Mostly because some of them will, like their eggs will only develop in a certain humidity, or their food will only grow within a certain humidity. And also, like, some insects have really delicate wings, and if it's going to rain, they need to be able to detect that and get somewhere safe. But yes, some insects do have a dedicated humidity organ.
I wonder if that's like the old farmer whose knee starts acting up when there's a storm a-coming. No? Okay.
Sorry, I muted my mic so I could look up what the insect humidity detector was called. And I did chuckle at that, but it will never be in any recording. So you just have to believe me.
Okay.
My understanding of that phenomenon is actually it's the pressure changes that cause like the various fluids and air pockets in your joints to like expand or contract or whatever.
Oh, that makes sense. I thought I was just being dumb, and
No.
Jim's like, "No, you're being sciencey," and I was like, "Okay."
I feel like it's. I've heard that that's still like a nebulous, like
Sure,
it's anecdotal. There's not like proof, but I mean, it's anecdotal enough that I feel like it's something that there's probably been some study on that I have not looked into.
I mean, it's enough that it is worth mentioning for sure.
I have the answer. Do you guys want it?
Please.
I do.
There is, they have something called hygroreception, which is in the posterior antennial lobe. So their lower antenna is used for processing humidity and temperature.
I like bugs. I like
They're
learning
neat.
about bugs.
They are cool.
Little robots. I love them.
Little robots. Someday I'm gonna farm rhinoceros beetles.
You keep saying that, man. You just need to do it.
I know. It's a lot of upfront cost. That's the problem.
Yeah. And then they only live like 16 months. Less.
Yeah, well, that's why you got to farm them instead of just get a pet, But then you got to get a tank, and you got to be... I've never kept a pet lizard or anything, because, like, I feel like there's too much to pay attention to, like moisture and humidity. And
It goes back to humidity.
It goes back to humidity. I like cats and dogs, because I just give them food and water, and then they're cuddly. Does anyone else have anything they want to say about the first question?
Don't think so.
I don't like it, but I am fascinated by it.
I don't like it. Let's move on.
One thing I do like about it, though, is that it reminds me, and hopefully everyone, that we have way more than 5 senses.
That's true.
Yeah.
You did mention that before. Temperature is the one I remember.
Yeah.
So, question 2 this week comes to us from Christy. Using ethical breeding practices, selecting for certain traits, what extinct animals could we bring back to life? And then an addendum, what about unethical practices? So before anyone says anything, I want to ask how we are defining ethical versus unethical breeding practices.
Oh, I thought you were going to just say, like, all right, what's the most unethical thing we can do?
No. I mean, well, the reason I mention that is because, like, I don't feel bad saying this. I'm usually pretty anti-dog breeding. So, like, I consider that unethical, but, like, what do we mean by ethical versus unethical breeding practices?
I feel like unethical breeding practices would be something done with the intentionality of highlighting a trait or feature that is detrimental to the animal.
Okay.
So, I cover your ears, dog breed enjoyers, but like folks that breed pugs, like I consider that personally to be unethical breeding practices because they have so many respiratory issues, bone issues, like all of this stuff that goes into making that really pronounced pug nose is really dangerous to the animal itself.
Okay, that's kind of the same page I'm on then.
Yeah, I suppose that would be in the unethical category then. So, I was thinking like surgically transforming something into a different animal. That's pretty unethical too, I think.
That's pretty unethical, Jim. You're right.
So the thing I was thinking about was a lot of people think the topic of cloning has come up, and a lot of people think of that as unethical. But like, I feel like modifying something on the genetic level and then having something, grow from birth is not. I mean, if you're doing it for like undesirable traits that are like harmful or something, that could be. But like, just the mere bringing something to life in that way, like I don't see why that would be considered unethical.
I agree with that as well. Again, I don't like when we get into like gene splicing to like get rid of, again, what you said, like what could be determined like undesirable traits is totally in the eye of the beholder and not really something you can make a choice about. Yeah. But on the flip side, I also know that there are like genetic markers for things like Alzheimer's and people that are predisposed to cancer, and like maybe genetically modifying that out isn't like such a bad thing, but there's a line and it's big and it's gray and I don't know how to define it.
Right. Yeah. But on that same token, there, if we have samples of things that are recently extinct, actually, I will mention this. I thought it was kind of interesting. This is the thing I said to Derek, and I was like, it's not going to go in the episode, but now it's come up.
I see no reason not to.
Yeah. So I was looking into Jurassic Park and sort of the fly trapped in amber, mosquito trapped in amber situation. And I discovered that apparently scientifically, a lot of the insects probably did have some kind of blood or something in them, but a lot of that genetic material would have fragmented over, 65 or more million years. Sure. So you wouldn't be able to just make a dinosaur out of that. But something that went extinct more recently might be something we could clone or duplicate or something, especially if we maybe padded it out with like genetic sequences from still living relatives. So I don't know. I have to look into this. I feel like the Tasmanian tiger is extinct, if I recall correctly.
Correct.
But it's only been like 100 years. If we got one, maybe we could like make a new one.
I actually, in part of my research, I started looking into the Tasmanian tiger because it is one of the animals that they are like putting up for this idea of reintroducing extinct animals back into their habitats using modern day gene technology and DNA pulling. But the Tasmanian tiger is so different from any other animal that it's difficult to find, a suitable what's the word? Surrogate for it, because it's a weird little guy. But my perspective in this is actually going outside of the question just a little bit in like, what extinct animals could we bring back to life? I'm less interested in that as I am in what endangered animals can we save. Using things like the white rhino, black rhino, and like using them to, clone and then distribute different genetics so that there's not too much of a risk of disease or inbreeding. Things like the carrier pigeon that went extinct, like we still have, a pretty good idea of what those look like and could probably modify modern pigeons to go back to that. No, what were they called? They weren't carrier pigeons. What were they?
Oh, I know what you mean. The ones that were like, there were like millions of them and they just would shoot them in the sky and then they eventually went extinct.
Yeah.
I forget what those
I think
are.
they led the like
Passenger pigeons?
Passenger pigeons, maybe. But yeah, I find more interest in like what we can do with this technology using ethical breeding practices, you know, to help the animals that we have that we are putting in crisis because of overpopulation, deforestation, yada, 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 hunting, and, you know, using this technology to stabilize their population. Mm-hmm. I yield the floor.
Well, I was just thinking that's something I should do more often. I was just thinking about, because you mentioned endangered animals, and I just was watching somebody talk about it. Had a very clickbaity title, and the video immediately kind of said this isn't really what I meant by it. But the title of the video was, "Should we let pandas go extinct?" or something. Like, should we care if pandas go extinct?
Mm.
And they were saying, well, here's all the reasons that pandas are, because pandas are not endangered as far as we can tell, at least not anymore, because humans took over, like led them to extinction, like we did with like the dodo.
Mm-hmm.
But pandas are just not interested in breeding. Is the best way that you can explain. They're not trying to. So like in order to save them, like you might have to do artificial insemination or even some sort of cloning situation, because pandas just aren't trying to keep their species going.
Yeah.
Is that, and the question isn't whether or not we should keep them going. The question is, could we? And so far it seems like we can't.
And pandas are one of those, like, I'm trying to think of the word now, but they're called like keystone species or representatives of their ecosystems, right?
Oh,
you get this big, cute animal that's representative of an ecosystem in crisis, but they're marketable, right? You can see a panda bear and be like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. It's so fluffy. The babies roll around. I want to save the panda. Right. But by saving the panda's environment, you're also saving all of the other smaller critters, insects, plants that are in that environment that are also in crisis. And this happens a lot. They use these animals to promote this saving of these environments because they're like mascots, basically, for their environment.
We're tricking people into supporting.
I think the mascot, or I think the panda is like the World Wildlife Foundation's logo, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The WWF. The best wrestling animal ever.
Pandas are pretty, they do good rolling and falling.
Wasn't there literally a panda in a fighter game?
Probably.
Yeah, Tekken.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was originally a palette swap for the grizzly bear. And there's also a grizzly bear in a fighting game. And a kangaroo and a velociraptor.
I'm just saying, I don't think a panda could beat Kenny Omega, but a panda could probably beat Brandon Cutler.
Panda's got teeth, though.
Yeah, but Kenny Omega's really fast and like acrobatic. Okay. I don't think a panda could keep up.
I don't think I would want to fight a panda, and not just for the obvious reason of I don't like fighting animals.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to pinfall a panda.
I feel like the last episode I was on, we talked about what dinosaur you could take in a fight. Oh, right. And now I'm back on, and you guys want to know what bear I could take in a fight? Because it is
Paddington.
Paddington. I could kick that bear.
Koala bear.
Koala bear is not a bear, Derek.
Yeah, but it's called a koala bear. So by definition of words, I don't know.
Words mean things.
Words mean things.
So true, bestie.
So
wait, I want to know what Bear Alley could take.
She said Paddington. Okay, go ahead.
I did say Paddington. I also think Ted from the movie Ted.
Oh yes.
So a teddy bear.
I could definitely take that bear. Mm-hmm. I almost said the Velveteen Rabbit, but that's definitely not a bear. Oh, is it like oh, they're really weird looking. Is it the moon bear or the sun bear?
Oh, the sun bear.
It's like small. It's smallish. It's like badger sized.
They are strange looking. Their faces are like furless or something.
Yeah, they're weird.
You should also look up a spectacled bear because they're adorable.
Oh. Yeah, I can take a sun bear. Look at that. That's a human in a bear suit.
So listeners, look up all the cute bears. I
like
wanted
the spectacled bear.
I like the spectacled bear. I don't. I'm trying to get back on track.
No, I don't want to.
No, we're not allowed.
I'm thinking about fighting bears now.
Thinking about fighting some bears. Here. Okay, so I don't know how to phrase this in a way that makes sense. So. Oh, here's how I'm going to do it. So using ethical breeding practices, and if we selected traits, and let's assume we have just thousands upon thousands of years to do this. The way I interpreted this question is, let's say we're pretty sure that the chicken is descended from the Tyrannosaurus Rex, if I'm not mistaken.
They're at least in the same family.
They're in the same family? Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty loose, quote, relative, but yeah.
Okay. Well, so that gets to my question. Do you think, could we, for thousands and thousands of years, select traits from chickens to eventually get to a Tyrannosaurus Rex?
Oh, boy.
No, go ahead, Jim. I've spoken so much already. Please.
Well, the one thing I was going to say was that I'm pretty sure I saw a thing where they did find that chickens still had the genes for like a tail, like a T-Rex tail, just way smaller, like a long tail, and they just have to reactivate those genes, and they could make it happen. But it would still be very. I don't know if you could. I feel like that would be a really difficult starting point, a chicken.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it'd be better to go for like an ostrich or something. Okay. Start big and then like select for arms. Well, I guess T-Rex didn't have that many arms. So.
Well, that's just why, like, I was trying to kind of understand, because I don't necessarily think of genetic modification or cloning as breeding, but I guess it still technically kind of is. But I remember that Allie told me about this, and I don't know any of the specifics, but there's some talk of the woolly mammoth happening, and I just don't know what that is all about.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. They have some pretty solid genetic material from some really well-preserved mammoths that were found encased in ice. I remember, like, when I was younger, they found a baby one that was like perfectly preserved. And you know, the genetic material does kind of fall apart, and it starts to get damaged when it's frozen and over so many years. But they found a lot of these really reliable and well-preserved pieces that they can start to code it together. And then I guess it's a really short jump between the woolly mammoth and the Indian elephant. So the plan is to kind of have these Indian elephants surrogate these woolly mammoths, and then to re-release them into a park in Siberia. And the main like scientific question is, can we reintroduce megafauna without, one, damaging the environment around it, and two, successfully reintroducing the megafauna without them just dying? And that's the question they're trying to answer.
That's interesting.
That is interesting. Wow.
I have a follow-up but dumber question.
Please.
What about reintroducing megafauna on a smaller planet?
Like Mars, for instance.
Like Mars.
I feel like that is a really great scientific question, Derek, that has a couple, like just a few, deviations that could occur between Earth and Mars. Like, there are a couple of things that are different between them that are not just the planet size. So
I think it'd be interesting. Could we probably not, because woolly mammoths ate plants.
Correct.
I was going to say we could like throw them onto Antarctica and see how they fare, but they don't have anything to eat down there, so
No,
Yeah,
it's
that
not.
would be.
the temperature would be fine. The food situation is precarious at best.
Well, and they're not really suited for extremely cold temperatures either. I mean, their range was within the Ice Age, but it was also in the areas that were not completely, is it called a desert when it's an
Like
ice
a polar
desert?
desert.
A
Yeah.
polar desert. Yeah, they can't survive in polar deserts, but in tundra areas and in like Siberia, it's the closest we have right now and getting warmer.
Yeah. You're right.
What?
I do want to put on the table the moa.
The
Oh, what is
moa.
that? I forget.
Moa was a flightless bird from New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
And it was a big boy.
Oh, yeah. Kind of similar to an ostrich in shape.
Yeah. When did they go extinct? It wasn't that long ago. I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
In the grand, yeah.
Moa extinction occurred within 100 years of human settlement of New Zealand.
Mm.
I don't know about that one because there were people on New Zealand for a while.
They
100
mean-
years of white humans. So.
Yeah.
They mean European. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they mean that.
According to this, Polynesians arrived sometime before 1300, and they're saying that in 1445, all the Moa had become extinct.
Oh, okay.
I assume there were still people in New Zealand before that as well.
Well, it's hard to say then if the Polynesians are.
Maori.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like when the last Moa died because like
Oh, okay.
and then what's the other big dinosaur bird in New Zealand? Is it New
Emus
Zealand?
or.
Not emus. That's Australia, isn't it? And
Oh,
they lost
yeah.
a war to the emu.
Yeah.
They did.
Yep.
It's very true.
Cassowary?
Cassowary.
Oh, yes. Those horrifying things.
Yeah.
I love them. They're so sharp.
Yeah, I like those things.
I feel like that's a better starting point than a chicken. Like,
Probably.
because I look at that and I'm like, that's a dinosaur. Like,
Yeah.
That is a dino. I'm looking at a picture of one right now.
yeah. It's not a far jump to get from that to dinosaur. I think we just have to make it a little angrier. Give it
This
teeth.
is very interesting. I'm so sorry to just jump right in.
No, go for it,
Go
man.
ahead.
The islands of New Zealand were the last large habitable land to be settled by humans. Between about 1280 and 1350, Polynesians began to settle the islands and developed a distinctive Maori culture. That is interesting. I didn't know that.
Wow.
I mean, that lines up with what I was reading there.
How did we miss New Zealand? It's huge.
Well, it was too busy being Middle Earth, I think.
I guess so. People found Easter Island and settled it way before New Zealand somehow.
There's a lot of islands out there, man.
Yeah, but this was a beefy
Jim.
boy.
I always get, speaking of where things are in the Southern Hemisphere, is New Zealand above Australia or below Australia?
I think
like
it's northeast.
Bottom right.
Is it?
Oh, is it? Wait, I just had the Wikipedia page open.
I could just be wrong.
It is bottom right.
Oh, okay.
It's below.
Yeah, it's like a lower-ish.
It's more southerly.
Yeah.
More southerly.
Okay.
What about Old Zealand?
I guess that's a town in like Sweden.
Oh.
Hey, did
Okay.
y'all know that New Zealand is actually part of a continent, sort of? There's like a submerged continent around New Zealand that is separate from Australia.
Oh, yeah, I did hear about this, but please speak more on it.
That's the gist of it.
What's it called?
What did they end up calling it? I super forget. Or maybe it might have just been Zealandia, which is not a cool name.
No. I also, I guess the official government is also saying that they would like to change the name from New Zealand to Aotearoa. So
Ooh.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
they are going to try to push back to the official Maori language of the name of the islands.
Interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So Australia is both a continent and a country.
correct.
Mm-hmm. It is just called Zealandia. That's disappointing.
Is New Zealand part of the Australian continent?
No.
Is
no.
it just not part of any continent? Apparently Zealandia.
Yeah, it's its own thing now, apparently.
Okay.
But Zealandia isn't a continent.
Well, it's apparently...
It's a sunken continent.
Yeah, apparently it is.
Ah.
It's mostly underwater. I'm
Wow.
gonna Discord this picture to you
Sure.
of the underwatery bits.
Oh, wow. I love false color images like this. They're so pretty.
It's cool.
Ooh.
Okay.
So I have one that I think... Actually, I have two that I think would be surprisingly easy to do through just a few generations, maybe more than a few, but some generations of selective breeding. And the first one is the auroch.
Oh,
Yes.
Which is the what would you say, like the root species of all of the domestic cattle we have now,
like bovines.
So yeah, like the moo cows. But they only went extinct like 400, 500 years ago, and I think you could probably selectively breed the traits back into our modern day cattle to bring them back. I don't think that would be a huge lift at all.
I mean, if they can breed the mega muscle cow, I think they can.
Yeah,
they can do that.
Auroch were huge, right?
they were quite large, yeah. But
I want that.
Angry cows coming back for revenge. I think I saw, now that you mention it, I thought I saw something that they actually tried to make. Oh, that's what it is. They were trying to breed auroch lookalikes, and they called these things called heck cattles.
Heck cattle.
Yeah.
Like HECK?
Yeah. Like apparently
or HE double hockey sticks.
No, it's actually heck.
Okay.
But apparently they look pretty similar, but like insides they're not really too much the same.
Oh.
Named after Lutz Heck.
Oh, okay.
Apparently is where that name comes from. It's not just like Hellhound or something.
The other one I was thinking of is if you could go back and selectively breed camels that would be suited for the American deserts. Because as far as we understand, camels actually evolved in North America and they went extinct here. So I think it would be interesting to bring them back and just plop them into the zones where they used to live.
I'd also like to put cave bears on the menu.
Cave bears.
That sounds wildly dangerous. Tell me more.
Well, we've got a lot of deer here, and I'd like there to be less of them because they try to jump out and murder my car. And also they're full of ticks, and I don't like that. So I feel like if we reintroduce a cave bear, I don't even know if they're native here, but I'd like to reintroduce them so that they might eat the deer that are trying to kill my car.
That makes sense, yeah.
Also, they're big and cute. I like bears. I definitely couldn't fight that one, though. Definitely not.
I want a full disclaimer that I don't want to fight any bears.
I don't want to, but I will.
They're asking for it.
I feel like we should also try to bring back dodos. Because what we did to them was not nice.
Yeah.
And also, like, maybe they taste better than chicken. Although I seem to recall reading somewhere that they actually taste quite bad.
Was it? Yeah, maybe it was just that's all they had on that.
Yeah.
I thought they just killed them for fun.
I think that was it.
I think some of them did too, because they were just so easy to kill, and they were like just, I don't know, because dodos weren't used to anything trying to kill them, so they would just like, stay there. Those people were jerks.
Yeah. I think they'd be cute. Little dodo pets. I don't know.
I think they're quite large, aren't they?
Well, sure. But little for what else was alive at the time.
What else was
that's
alive?
Fair, yeah.
I wanted to say they were about the size of like a pelican, but they're probably bigger than that.
Never mind. I'm scared of pelicans.
Well, pelicans can fly and have the giant mouth thing.
Yeah, they can swallow you whole.
Yeah.
They can, and have done it on many occasions.
You know what would be really unethical?
Tell me.
To breed larger pelicans.
Wow. Yeah.
Like a pelican the size of a pterodactyl.
I like this vein that we've hit on. What other, like, what shouldn't we make?
Apparently we have the giant monster storks that...
Oh, yeah.
That
the elder god storks.
The elder god storks that provide humans with their children.
What else should we not make?
What should we not make? T-Rex, I think. I saw Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's true. I would say we should make like an Apatosaurus or like a Diplodocus or a Brachio, like a cool long neck. I want one of those.
Stegosaurus.
Oh, I do like. Let's make all the plant-eating dinosaurs and none of the meat-eating ones.
Surely there will be no consequence to this.
There's
none.
Checks and balances, Jim.
Well, that's why you put them on an island in the South Pacific and just open a park.
A Jurassic Park?
Yeah, and you'll notice that none of the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park that tried to kill the people, none of them were long-necked or Stegosauruses or Triceratopses. They were just all the meat eaters. Yeah, the Parasaurolophuses didn't try to eat Dr. Grant.
Yet.
How many of those dinosaurs were actually from the Jurassic period?
None of them, I think.
None of them?
Less than you'd like.
Less than you'd like.
I saw a Photoshop somebody made that was like, I fixed it. It just said Cretaceous Park.
Yeah, it's just all from the Cretaceous period. I think, is it the Stegosaurus that might be Jurassic?
I genuinely don't remember anymore.
I
think it is, because they and the T-Rex were not alive at the same time.
Yeah, that's correct. I have another one that is a great contender for we should not bring it back, and that is the crocodilians. All of the gianter alligators.
Because they're already here.
I was going to say, Derek, I've got some really terrible news for you.
like the ones that were bigger. Because I want to say that like the ones that are still alive, like I'm not keen on them either.
True.
Yeah. Oh, you know what we should bring back? And I don't know how hard this would be, because I don't know. They were like a separate family altogether, I think. Or I was thinking trilobites.
Aww.
I bet you could selectively breed horseshoe crabs to look like trilobites. They wouldn't be, of course, the same, but they would look cool, and I love trilobites.
And we've got the little pill bugs, potato bugs.
Oh, yeah.
They can probably get kind of close, right?
Yeah.
Not to trilobites, but to the other one.
Isopods.
Yeah.
It makes me sad that trilobites were one of the most successful animals of all time, and they're not around anymore.
Yeah.
I like horseshoe crabs.
I also like horseshoe crabs. Yeah.
I feel like we should take a vaguely scientific trip in May and go to Roanoke Island, which is when all the horseshoe crabs come up onto the shore to lay their eggs.
Oh, that's cool.
I feel like that would be very cool.
That would be fun.
If we get out of this void, maybe we'll think
about it. If we get out of the void. Wonder if Roanoke is still there. Yeah,
what?
It would be.
You're thinking of the wrong Roanoke.
Ignore that, everyone.
The correct Roanoke, the wrong time frame.
Yeah. All right. Well, listeners, let us know this week. Using ethical breeding practices Nope, I'm not going to say that. Jim, do we have any listener mail this week?
We do, and as always, you can send us listener mail at feedback@vaguelyscientific.com. You can comment on our blog. You can like us on Facebook. You can tweet @VaguelySci. And this week, our mail comes to us from listener Nate. And Nate says, so I was listening to episode 116, and I wanted to confirm some facts for you about turtles. Ooh. I've been raising a baby side-neck turtle, so I've got a little experience. First off, turtles do not have teeth. However, babies who, when born, have what is called an egg tooth they use to break out of their eggs. Those usually fall off within a month or so, though, so the TMNT's teeth probably aren't related to that. The pizza teeth was unnerving. LOL. Secondly, wanted to say that it's not just red-eared sliders that have to eat in water. It's actually most species of turtles that live in water. Thirdly, turtles do fart. It's kind of funny to watch the bubbles when it happens. However, this discussion did make me wonder. Most of your conversation made sense if the turtles are warm-blooded. However, turtles are cold-blooded and need the sunlight to create vitamin D. If turtles get cold, they get sluggish and wouldn't be able to do much less be ninjas. So how do the turtles survive in the sewers, especially that big? I know the easy answer is that they are mutants, LOL.
I know, but I think if we don't want to take the easy answer, we're going to have to put that on our list of questions.
Yeah.
I submit radioactivity.
They have enough radioactivity to stay warm in the winter.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That works.
That's frightening. Well, thank you very much for that email. And if you have a question that needs to be answered in a vaguely scientific manner, please email us at questions@vaguelyscientific.com. If you want to get our episode the minute that they're released, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and all the other great places that cool podcasts like to hang out. And subscribing and leaving feedback really helps us out, and so does telling your friends.
So tell all your friends.
Please tell your friends.
Yeah.
Our vaguely musical intro is composed by Anthony Pizzelli, and don't forget to check out our merch store over at vaguelyscientific.threadless.com. So many cool things there. I don't know. I haven't actually looked in a bit. There's probably new stuff, new things that are not shirts.
If you like stuff and things,
You like stuff
check out
and
the
things.
store.
Thank you to Allie for being our guest this week.
Oh, hey, thank you guys for having me on again.
Yeah.
I'm going to go take a walk around in the blank whiteness that's around us. So I'll catch you guys on the other side.
That sounds fun. And also mortifying on like a really fundamental level.
Only if you think about it.
For Vaguely Scientific, I am Derek.
I'm Jim.
I'm Allie.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye,
hope.
everyone. Or I should say toodaloo. Toodaloo, everyone.
And toodaloo. Yeah. I mean, I hit record already. Yeah. On my end, at least, on Audacity.
I didn't. I just now did, though. There's going to be a lot of weird one-sided Allie conversation in this raw footage.
That's fine.
Raw audio.
Raw audio footage.
Raw audio.
Raw,
Probably a name for that.
uncut Allie footage.
Uncut Allie footage.
Except not footage. It's just my voice.
Yeah, what's the word for audio that would be comparable to footage? That there's got to be
Recording.
Is that it?
That's,
I think,
don't
probably.
like that.
I don't like that. That's not enough. That's not like special enough.